Coming to you live from the Business Radio X studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by IDS, an award-winning digital marketing agency that delivers integrated marketing solutions for franchisors, franchisees, and franchise development teams. Learn why over 75 brands depend on IDS's team of dedicated marketers and client service professionals to deliver a strong ROI on their marketing investment. Go to idsfranchisemarketing.com for a complimentary digital audit and consultation.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Franchise Marketing Radio. I'm your host, Rob Ganley, and we're the show where we bring you inspiring conversations with industry leaders and franchise experts. And today is no different. We have a very, very special guest. Welcome, Heather Ripley. She is the CEO of Ripley PR. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you so much.
It's great to have you. So tell me a little bit about Ripley PR. I know you're obviously on our show today, Franchise Marketing Radio, and I know your brand. I know you work with franchises, but tell me a little bit about how this all came to be for you and where you see the future headed for Ripley PR.
Yeah, thank you. So my background is heavy in the marketing area. And in 2006 and 2007, I started paying attention to this large franchise brand that we had when I was living in Sarasota, Florida, called Clockwork Home Services. And it was the parent company of 1 Hour Heating and Air, Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, and Mr. Sparky. And I really wanted to work there. So I applied there in 2008 and got a job as the marketing manager and worked there for a couple of years. And many of you might know those brands. They're very popular brands. The CEO at the time told me that he wanted to sell the company. So I started working on a big national push for them, ended up getting them on Celebrity Apprentice. And then he was able to sell the company. And I left and went to the agency side of things. Still kind of touched some franchise brands. I just had that entrepreneurial spirit since working at Clockwork and working with all those franchise owners. I was in love with franchising and entrepreneurship, and I started my own business in 2013. So that's kind of how I came about Ripley PR. Over the years, we've continued to evolve the company, but we do specialize in franchise. We specialize in the skilled trades, and we work with some tech companies and manufacturers as well. But love franchises, love helping. And my best experience in the franchise world is on the fran dev side. Love helping support franchise development and lead generation and using PR to do so.
Me too. Well, part of it too is like when you're telling your story about how, first of all, you were attracted to franchises, which maybe when you first started, you weren't quite sure what that was, like in the very, very beginning. But a very cool idea of franchising. That's why I do what I do. But I love the fact that you started a business and being that entrepreneur that you are. Yeah, that it's kind of fun, the franchise development side of things, because you care about it, right? It's like I care about seeing people get started in business. And I also know, man, it's not all that easy to do your own thing.
It's not.
So I got to give you some credit because you're helping people do their own thing, but not quite. But you did your own thing. Like, there wasn't anyone there to kind of like hold your hand, but maybe you had learned a few things before you started your own venture. So hopefully that helped, right?
But it did. Anyway, yeah.
right, exactly. Prepared you to do your own thing. So you started your own thing in 2013. So that's almost, I guess, 10 years now. Tell me a little bit about like what would you say? Let's rephrase. Let's say this. What were some of the unique marketing challenges that you've kind of discovered over the last 10 years in the area of franchise development that you saw as a challenge and you kind of solved it? Like you said, but that's a gap. I'm going to go ahead and do this better for franchisors. What is that? What do you think that is? Is there something kind of special that you've discovered or a recipe that you guys have at Ripley that really helps brands?
Yeah, and I think so the answer is kind of twofold. For Ripley, for the agency, I have really tried to build my brand just like a franchise model. So we have an OpEx system. We have processes in place. So everybody's doing the same thing. And no matter who you get on the team, they're going to do it the same way, kind of like a McDonald's. I thought that going in, that was important. I wanted to position my company as something that felt a lot bigger. And to be able to do that, we modeled ourselves after some of the biggest brands. To answer your question about how we help franchisors and even franchisees, you mentioned this, that the last 10 years, a lot has changed. And I think more than ever, it's really hard to stand out. There's so much clutter out there. There's, with social media and just everybody being their own journalist, it really is hard to stand out as different. And when you've got a prospective franchise owner looking into several different brands, what are they seeing about your brand that makes them want to talk to you? Because we found that they're doing their research online, reading about the brand, even asking other people what they think about the brand before they ever reach out to the friend dev person. So if you can make good content on your LinkedIn or on your website, but also get that earned media coverage, that goes a long way in helping you sell the prospect.
I totally agree. I mean, everything is about, being on screens. And when you're researching anything, and it's our natural habit when we learn about things or learn about a new product or anything, we're going to go and spend time online, and you've got to have a presence there. And it does a great job. So like the difference between paid ads and earned is like, your people discover you naturally. Like, so you're not trying to market to them, right? And they know that. And so it's very profound when they find something like in the news media, something cool, a great story, but it has a different impact, right? Than like you see an ad on Google versus, hey, I read a story on this website about this brand. That a hugely different impact, right? So that's interesting. So tell me something. I know with franchising, consistency throughout the network is important, right? How they do things, how they treat the customers, how they deliver. You just said it, like with your team. So from a brand image point of view, what do you have to think about when you're engaging with a new client or working with clients? Is there something you have to be considerate of to maintain that consistent brand image in different places throughout the country?
Yeah, and I think it depends brand by brand. But when we're in a good spot, I guess, where we can interview clients before they come on and make sure they're a good fit for us. And I'm a firm believer in systems and operation. And does the franchise have coaches, so that they can work one-on-one with these franchise owners? Because the very worst thing that can happen is you have this rogue franchisee doing their own thing, and the franchisor turns a blind eye to it because they're selling. So we've seen that before, and it makes it really hard for PR because, on our side, we're getting positive press coverage for both the franchise brand nationally and the franchisees on a local level. And then you've got this one franchisee doing their own thing and telling their own story in a different way. So it can be hard. I try to look for and interview franchisors to make sure that they have those systems in place to make sure that, we're teaching the franchise owners how to do PR in the right way, what to wear on TV if they get an interview, how to present themselves, because it really is important and it makes that cohesive branding message like you mentioned.
Interesting. It's funny what you're saying, because in a sense you would think, well, of course, right? Like, in other words, but you do as a PR firm have to remind them that we've got to be consistent here. So we need your participation. We need you to collaborate with us. We need to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. And I love to hear that from you, because that says a lot about your business, right? You want to do good work. And I've always felt the same way too, that, help me help you, right? I want to do a great job and I love what I do and I love representing brands, but, help me help you. And if we don't do things the right way, well, then, this could happen. And eventually not having a consistent image is a problem. And I know when you said rogue, that used to be a much worse problem, huh? Like when you first started, probably, because I remember with the websites, we would see crazy websites. The only thing we could recognize is the logo. So
yes,
it was just different local websites, right? For a while where everybody was trying to build a local website for themselves. And so anyway, that's true. Not happening so much anymore. But All right, well, cool. So tell me a little bit more. You said before you started Ripley PR, you did something at your former brand. You got the brand a really big win with a reality show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about like when you're working with a franchise brand, with all this stuff. So you said a lot changed in the last 10 years with all these influencers and all these folks on social media with such reach. And then you have just the regular idea of shows and getting promotion through other channels. How do you go about doing that? I mean, is there a secret way? Is there some kind of tactics that you use or you're now taking into consideration that maybe you didn't used to have to do because of all the digital stuff and social media?
Yeah. And I think it's asking more questions. Over the years, we've worked with both emerging franchisors and very large franchisors with 600, 700, 800 locations. And the end game, I think, is most important. So, with Jim Abrams at Clockwork, he knew he wanted to sell the company. So the PR that we did was specifically for that purpose. It was to get us in front of buyers. And one franchise brand that comes to mind is Blue Frog Plumbing and Drain. They hired us because he wanted to sell. He's like, I want 6 months, a year of big national coverage. Help me get acquired. And so that was the strategy. That was the end game for him. We have some franchisors who their goal is to continue to acquire other brands. So they want to get national coverage, national awards, but they also want to get the local or regional coverage for their franchisees. So those franchisees will be more likely to buy the other brands as they get acquired. So I really think, to answer your question, it really depends on what the goals are. And we hope that the person that we're talking to, usually I like to talk to the highest up because the CEO may not share his future plans with the marketing director. In my case at Clockwork, I was fortunate that he did, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And so you can be working on something that the marketing director thinks is the end game, yet the CEO has another goal in mind. So I think transparency is important. And for a PR partner to be viewed as an extension of your executive team is really important, because if we know those secrets and those goals, we can be working on the things that need to take place to make it happen.
Very, very good answer. Very strategic answer, right? Start with the end in mind. And so many people don't do that, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
What exactly are we doing this for again? And the great leaders always remind you of the end game, right? And that's what's awesome. But that's awesome that you think that way, because, that's why you start that way. You interview the company, get to know them. You really know you need that end game. You need to get to it. What is it? And to confirm it. But it makes me think, though, part of my question, because I'm not an expert in public relations by any means, but if you have a client and they say, I'd love to be acquired. This is sort of my end game. Is there, like, from your perspective, if you've got the right budget, the right resource, is there sort of, hey, we can do amazing things if we've got the resources. It's just a question of whether it would be worth the investment to do. So in other words, if I said, I want to be on all these great shows and I want to get this exposure, is that something you can pretty much dial up if the budget's there? Or is there more to it than that? In other words, could you make it happen if someone said, here you go, I need to make this happen? Is it more about, hey, are you sure you want to make it happen? Is it the right goal? Because I know in paid media, kind of contextualize it. It's like, you can be on the top of Google all day long, but will that budget lead to the results you want? Yes. Does that make sense? Like it does.
It does. And sometimes it's an ego thing. Sometimes a CEO of a franchisor will say, I want to be on national TV, make it happen. But yet they haven't done any of the things that need to take place in the meantime to make that happen. Just an example. Proactive PR starts small, usually. Sometimes an emerging franchisor will hire us and we get them in Wall Street Journal right off the bat. That's not typical. Usually we have to start small because those journalists are looking online to see who else has written about them. They don't want to be the first, to write about this terrible company they didn't know was terrible. So they want to see that this company has actually a good reputation, and it builds. So if you want that big national stuff, you can get there. You can get there with a small budget. You just have to give it time. Give it a reasonable amount of time to start building that momentum with coverage locally, regionally, nationally. And then, if you want that big TV story, you can get there. Now, budget is a matter of consideration because a lot of the shows charge. So it is something that has to be considered for certain shows. But I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I think
no, it did.
Be reasonable about your
it's a perfect answer because now, it's like a lot of things, you have to sort of build that momentum.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's actually interesting what you said about the journalists kind of looking at things. It's like we just said it earlier that, people, potential franchise prospects will look online and you want to have a presence and you be telling stories and showing up places, but so do the journalists.
Exactly.
So
Same
they're
thing.
looking at you too. So it's like, I didn't think of it that way. It's a really important distinction. So it's like at the process, right? You step by step. And so that's very strategic. It's like, where do we need to focus to kind of build the momentum first? And so that's a great answer. It very much helped. And you're right about the shows. I was wondering about that. Like I figured, I know, because being a marketer too, I know there's a lot of pay to play situations.
Yeah.
But I was wondering about that. And yeah, of course, right? It's like, well, yeah, sure. $100,000. Do we have that to do this one interview? I mean, that might be the case, right? To consider. Yeah. So yeah, great. So tell me a little bit about the future. We look at the last 10 years. From a marketing trend standpoint and a franchising standpoint, right? So thinking just in the industry of franchises, or the model of franchises, is there something you're seeing or thinking we're going to be doing more of this, or this kind of changes upon us? Anything like that you're thinking? And how do you guys stay on top of sort of trends that you think are important?
Yeah, I mean, we're always curious. I like to hire curious people who want to learn and want to grow. Every day we're learning something new. I think that paid media has definitely changed, obviously. Earned and owned media, in my opinion, are a really good opportunity. And by owned, I mean content on your website, blogs, your social media content, LinkedIn, long form content. Those are things that I feel like right now you can control as a company. Paid media is paid media. It's always evolving. You can have digital ads, but people know their ads. People know that when they see an ad, they know that's what that is. But content can be informative and educational, and you can do it in a more subtle way to really sell things through. So, content production is changing. As we know, AI is kind of changing the future, and it's kind of the Wild West. We still don't know exactly what that's going to look like 2 years from now, let alone 5 or 10. What we're seeing right now, and my team is kind of playing with it to see, where it can help us. And where it can help clients, because I know clients are thinking they can produce their own content through AI and they don't need a marketer. But, we don't know yet. We don't know where the content is coming from. We're hearing that some of it's plagiarized because it's not creating anything new. So if that's the case, you may want to use it for first draft and then make sure you kind of go through it, edit, and maybe even run it through a plagiarism checker, because some of that content, if you just trust AI to create it and then you put it on your website as a blog, it might hurt you more than it's helping, because Google algorithms and everything, they'll negatively rank plagiarized content on your site, so you actually show up lower in the search. So anyway, there's things like that maybe people are jumping on it a little bit too quickly and aren't researching. But we are very curious. We're excited about it. I think it makes the people connection and the consultation of what we do more important. At least for right now, we still have to have those relationships with journalists, which is something that AI can't do for us yet. So, I mean, we'll see. It's interesting for sure.
It's it certainly is. We could spend another hour, maybe many hours on this whole thing.
Yeah.
But I thought when you said, you can't replace marketers or no, you said some clients think, well, we can replace marketers or some function.
Yeah.
I still think there is in my experience with AI, because I am kicking the tires quite a bit, as much as I can. But you still have to guide it, right? You have to be the expert. And if you're looking at the output and you're not an expert, then you don't know, is this doing justice, right? It's got to be you still. It's you representing it. And so if anything, I think it could give folks the opportunity to do more. And maybe the more part helps, do things you just didn't do before because you didn't have the bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
But I think nothing's going to change in terms of we're all still people that like stories. We want to trust others based on seeing ourselves in that story or understanding or relating to it. That's never going to change. And we got to be able to tell stories, go out there and do real things that we can tell stories about. It's interesting. Maybe AI extends the velocity of things, but if we're all competing, I don't know if it changes much. We just have more information we don't have time for. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. But I think that the bottom line, though, is quality will never not be important. And I know Google, that's really all they ever wanted was quality. They just want, if they're going to share information with someone who's searching, they want it to be high quality, right? So it's pretty easy. I mean, it makes sense. Why would you don't want to make a bad website, do you? Or put out bad content. So if you just always focus that way, maybe AI helps you do it faster. I don't know. We'll keep looking into that. So I appreciate your input on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but tell me, so a little bit back to what you were saying earlier, and this was just kind of stuck in my mind. You were talking about, how the process of building momentum and building relationships with journalists, or at least indirectly, where they're starting to see who you are. Maybe you're a little bit on their radar because you've done some smaller things. Tell me though about the reputation side. And now we're talking about the consumer reputation, things like reviews. And of course, we always talk about that in traditional digital marketing. But I'm going to guess that's also a place that journalists or anybody that wants to represent their own brand and put you on it, they're going to look a lot at that. Like they want to know you have a good reputation, you're a good citizen in the world. So how important or how destructive could it be if you don't have a great reputation online to try to get more PR, in other words?
Yeah, it is very important. But I think a lot of franchisees think that if they don't have 5-star average, or if they don't have all positive reviews, that's a bad thing. A lot of times what can happen if you get a negative one is you respond to it in a great way. And that means more to future customers than a bunch of positive reviews that may seem fake. So we try to guide and give our clients best practices for responding to reviews, because I think that's a key opportunity that's missed a lot of times, responding to those negative ones. And we know that 1% to 2% of people are just never going to be happy, no matter what. They exist, and they seemingly are always the ones that go online and rant about it. So knowing that as a business owner, franchisee, or as a marketer, when you respond, you're responding to other people that are reading that. You may not ever be able to make that other person happy, but if you can put that cap on that you're writing to all the other readers, then that can often get you other positive, other positive clients and then reviews. So just know that take it offline if you can. Offer your phone number, offer to help that person. But when you're writing your response, to know that other people are reading that.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've always known. In fact, speaking of AI, I'm a tool junkie, so I constantly look at what's going on. I don't know if that's a smart thing to do. It's like trying to open all your emails, right? But there's there's a lot of tools, right? And one recently I came across was one that would respond for you. But the point is that you have to respond to your reviews, right? It's a missed opportunity not to. And really, you're right. Certainly if you have a real low rating overall, it would be a problem. But I mean, being human is being human. We all know that running businesses is not always easy. We all have jobs. We all run businesses. So when we use other services, we can be patient. I think it's the way you handle those things. Mm-hmm. And the way you respond. I mean, that's all I would ever look for is just try to make it right, acknowledge me and don't ignore what I'm saying or pretend like it's not a problem. But I think that can almost do as much good, that interaction, as just pure 5-star. In fact, if it's pure 5-star, you might wonder, like, what's the deal?
Right.
How can it be? So anyway, that was very helpful. I appreciate that. So as we wrap the show up, I wanted to kind of, maybe put a capper on this and just kind of ask you to kind of share with the audience your sort of, now that we've talked about a lot of things, is there an overarching philosophy you have about working with franchise brands? And is there any advice you might give them, any executives, any marketers, any CEO founders of franchise brands, especially the emerging guys, right? Or maybe all of them. I think there would be a little different though, emerging versus, maybe you could do it both ways. Emerging, and then for the big guys, what would be the advice you would give? And is there an overarching sort of approach you have to working with brands?
Yeah, for emerging concepts or emerging brands, I have worked with dozens of those over the years. And I think the biggest failure on their part is a lot of times they know the industry that they're franchising because they've built a great business and they suddenly want to franchise it. Maybe they were talked into franchising it. But if they don't partner with franchise experts, it's going to fail. And by that I mean they need to have some franchise experts on their team, not just a franchise attorney. Work with franchise marketing agencies, work with experts who know the franchising world and be open. I can't tell you how many times I've visited a brand new franchise concept and they were missing so many key pieces, but they were excited about launching the franchise brand and were only concerned about the coverage they were going to get and how many sales they were going to get. But they didn't have all the back end support stuff that they needed. They didn't have those pieces in place. So what good is the coverage if you're not going to support your franchisees and then they're going to be gone soon when their FDD expire, whenever their contract expires. So that's what I would say for emerging concepts is just talk to the franchise experts to get lots and lots of opinions on the brand, on the concept, on the operational side. For established brands, don't underestimate PR. It can help and it complements your marketing efforts. It really does, because all that coverage, all those success stories, having a PR agency interview your most successful franchise owners and then sharing those stories. A lot of people buy into a business because it's of an exit strategy or the freedom that it's going to bring to them, spending more time with their kids. Being able to share those lifestyle stories in the national publications is valuable, and it's going to help you generate way more leads than solely focusing on advertising. So it can really complement everything. Talk to experts about discovery days. That's one of my favorite things is helping to put on roadshow discovery days and take the brand to the prospects and really helping play that up with PR. So anyway, my overall advice would be don't underestimate PR.
I love it. I mean, I would say as a marketer, my background, I've seen a lot of franchise development campaigns or ad campaigns. And organic traffic just does great. It always converts better. And here's the important thing. When you look at the column that says closed sales, it's more organic usually. And, organic is that storytelling. It's when they discover you in an indirect way. And I agree with you. I think it's more of that now. And I think that's the only way you can stand out. I mean, if I Google someone and I look at and I see several stories about franchisees being successful, to me, that's way more impactful. You're going to assume everything else is there. You're going to assume that the numbers are there and it's a good deal and it's a good industry and they're going to hear all the right things. But the real authentic thing is the stories, right, of people doing it. And I think that never goes away. It doesn't matter how big your brand is because there's always, everybody's different in how they make a decision. But even if they know the brand, in other words, they still want to hear stories. And then at the merging side, I totally agree with that because I think that the big thing is yesterday I was on a training and they were talking at one point about being a driver, being a driven type of person. And they just said it in a way that made me realize not everybody's like that. Not everybody actually wants to improve themselves all the time. Not everybody wants to learn new things all the time. Not everybody's trying to build something big. And a lot of these franchisors, when they start, they're that guy. They're the guy that has that personality that will just figure it out and do it as I go and make it happen. But, a lot of times franchisees aren't those types of people, right? They are on some level. Maybe they're very new to that. But as a franchisor, you have to now shift from being whatever it is you were to being an expert at helping others do what you did. So you also have to realize that they're not like you. So they're probably going to need a little more support, hand-holding, a little bit clear instruction, And hey, it's a proven model. It's been going, I don't know, franchise, I think it's in the 70s, right? It works. I know a lot of other models where you can start a business somehow and it's tough, right? To see 5 years later, you're still in business. And so we know it works, but I think a lot of the emerging franchisors, it's like you said earlier, it's starting with the end in mind. You're turning your business into a franchise so you can scale it, but now you have to change who you are as a business, right? It's not just you're running a home services company. It's you're helping others get into business for themselves and do it successfully. And that's a different business altogether. So, yeah. So I thought that was great. I appreciate those answers and that input. You're just based on what you're telling me, you're a pleasure. You really are. I know you care.
Thank you.
Yeah, you care about results. You care about doing the right thing. You're just not in it for whatever the vanity metrics might be or how much growth you might be shooting for. I could tell you would say no to a customer if you didn't think you could help them.
Yeah, I would.
I think that says a lot about a brand. So I appreciate that. And thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you. Hope to have you back soon.